Shalom. I want to start this off by giving honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, Lord Kakwadash. Peace and salutations to the elect men and elder men that are laboring diligently day by day, pushing forth the will and doctrine of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, according to the true understanding of his scriptures. To all of you, I say Shalom. So, this lesson, I'll write it. This lesson is going to be titled, Leave That Nigga Shit at the Door Before You Come to the Lord. Right? And the brother, Padai, my older brother, he had did a lesson the other day, and it was, let me see. It's called Scandals Coming Out in Israel. Soap opera dramas allows you to see actors. Drama or rebuke, ? Right? And there was another one that he had did as well. It was called A Lot of Jake / Eve Are Getting Israel / Yahweh a Bad Rap. Don't be one to get the faith a bad rap or rep, right? And that's just sentiment I've been meditating on these past few days, and just listening to the word, that the brother was, professing, teaching, that basically what I'm naming this lesson is what came to mind, like, you just gotta leave that nigga shit at the door before you try to come to the Lord, because it's too many of our people that are caught up in that are caught up and still holding to these wicked traits that come of this world, and the traits that have been produced as an effect to who runs this world, which is Esau, Edom, so-called white people, because everybody comes from somebody within the book, right? So the rulers have led this world in a way to where they uphold a false image, right? And they seek to do things for all the wrong reasons, and that's something that's big within the black culture and the black community. And we understand and we know that we aren't to be a part of the black community, the black culture, coming back into who we really are, which is Israel. We need to be upholding Israelite culture, Israel's true culture, and professing the Lord in the way that we are supposed to, and a lot of men, you hear a lot of men that teach this word diligently and righteously. They go on and say there's a lot of niggas that's still that's amongst Israel, because they're still they're still holding to these nigga ways of doing things that's done in the world, because it's something that's common within the world. So it just shows that they're still caught up in the world in the wrong ways, and you can't do that, you can't bring those things in to the Lord's house. You can't expect to bring those things to the Lord's house, because you're not even going to get in trying to bring those in, you know what I'm saying? It's like having the wrong wedding garment on. You know, you got to make sure that you got the right wedding garment on. You got the right apparel, the right attire to be able to get into here. You know, it's like the movie White Chicks. Terry Crews' character, he was like, ain't you know that this was an all-white party? You know, like basically dismissing, you know what I'm saying, them because they wouldn't in proper attire, but really like, I just use that as an example, you know, as far as like not coming correctly, if you will, right? Because you know that's all a joke of aside, you know, ain't nothing, you know what I'm saying, regarded. But the point is making sure that you coming correctly and making sure you having the right things to be able to do so, you know. Because if you don't have the right things to be able to do that for real, you only putting yourself in a bad position. You know, you're not putting yourself in a position to where the Lord is gonna deal with you how you ultimately would want to, you know, which is you being in His good graces and you being able to receive those things of eternal life, you know. So I got some scriptures and certain words to go into, you know, so we're gonna hop right into this, you know, and Lord, will this be edifying. So I'm gonna start with see, I can grab mine. Hell. This is Sirach 14. And we're going to start at 1. It says, blessed is the man that hath not slipped with his mouth and is not pricked with the multitude of sins. Right? And another thing I'm going to do too, it's like, another thing what I'm going to do too is I'm also going to read certain verses of this in the revised version with the Apocrypha from 1885 to 1895, all right? Just to help add to the point, you know? But continuing here, it says, blessed is he whose conscience hath not condemned him and who is not fallen from his hope in the Lord. It says, verse 3, riches are not comely for a niggard, and what should an envious man do with money? Right? Now let me see. Which ones I want to make sure I get. So I'm gonna read this verse 3 one more time. It says, riches are not comely for a niggard, and what should an envious man do with money? Right? And this is something very important to pay attention to, because that word niggard goes back into the word nigger, or you know, nigga, right? Which is a byword, you know, a derogatory term, phrase that has been put on our people, you know. But this is something that's very important to know, to understand, and pay attention to, because words hold vibrations, which is why we know that we're not black, because the word black goes into void of light. So we shouldn't be trying to do things in a way that keeps us void of light, right? Same with the word niggard, right? I'm gonna grab the etymology of it real quick, right? So the word niggard is a noun, right? It says mean or stingy person. It says miser. It says stingy. It says, it mentions the prefix nig and the suffix ard, right? Which the prefix nig, right, is 1300 century Stygian person, which is connected to Nigard, says as abbreviated form of nigger, right? It says it says it is noted in an 1879 British book on colonial household management as a term too often applied to the Indian natives, right? Which is referring to us. So I can get that real quick and show that on the screen for those that want to see. Right. That was NIG. You just pause and read, however you can. So, that right there is showing you that that word, nigger ties into nigger, You say that or mention that to any Jake in the world, they gonna know that's not something that they want to be held to or placed to, But again, for like, is it for the right reasons or for the wrong reasons? What's your intentions behind not doing that? Is it just because you know that that term is bad, or is it that you understand what comes with that title? The spirit, the energy that comes with that title. These are all things to be really conscious of and considerate of when you looking to critique yourself and build yourself back up better. So continuing here, right? It says, and what should an envious man do with money? It says he hath gathered by defrauding his own soul. He that gathereth by defrauding his own soul gathereth for others, that shall spend his goods riotously. It says, so basically it's like you getting all these things and you do all these things for all the wrong reasons, and it's not producing anything good. It's not producing fruit, basically good fruit. It says, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? See, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he do good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods, And it's like you not taking care of yourself how you need to. So how the hell if you're not taking care of yourself correctly, are you gonna be able to take care of somebody else correctly? Because to be a part of this, right, you gotta be in the state or in likeness to Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shai's whole mentality and how he was moving when he walked the earth was being completely considerate of others, specifically of our people, those that were of Israel, right? Moving in a way to where he ultimately sacrificed his own life to make sure that we can have a better chance of being in good stands with the Lord. He was willing to sacrifice his own life to make sure that we could be we could ultimately be set up, giving us a prime example, showing us no matter what situation you in or amongst or a part of, you know, whether you be of low or high stature, right? You can still please the Lord, you know, if your intentions are pure, if your intentions are to please the Lord, you know, like how do I say it? Right. You shouldn't be seeking anything other than pleasing the Lord first and foremost, you know? Like your intention should always be towards that. Like making sure that you pleasing the Lord how you should, you know? Making sure that you put yourself in the right state to be able to please him with all that you do, you know? Like you want to make sure that you're moving in a way to where he's pleased with you, to where then you can take upon you more grace and mercy, you know? You stocking up on grace and mercy, you know? Having that to be your treasures, you know what I'm saying, in mind, right? Those are the things that you are wanting to have, you know? The things that you want to hold the value, right? But continuing here says, verse 6, right? Sirach 14:6, it says, there is none worse than he that envieth himself, and this is a recompense of his wickedness. Right? And then also in the RV, right? 1895, the revised version with the Apocrypha, right? It says, I'm gonna start at verse 5. It says, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? And he shall not rejoice in his possessions. Right? Because it's all for the wrong reasons, you know? There's only one truth, there's only one way to receive these things, you know? It only makes sense to go about it the way that the Lord set it up, you know? You can't expect to try to get different results if what it is that you're dealing with is only set up to be gotten this way, you know? It's crazy. Yeah. So like it's like a red wasp that keep flying outside the window. And I ain't never I ain't never seen that one before. It just look like a whole different size of an animal. But so like basically what was I saying? Right. If you seeking to gain things for all the wrong reasons, you're not really gonna get no satisfaction out of it. And that's what you see is the case with a lot of our people that are still holding to this world that we're amongst and that we're in, you know? That's those are the traits that you see them upholding and taking onto themselves, you know? And with them doing that, those are the results that they're getting. Or they're not satisfied, or they're not pleased, or they can't rejoice in the things that they gain because they've gotten it in all the wrong ways for all the wrong reasons, right? They're still empty spiritually. So now they're just itching ear, you know what I'm saying, trying to find the next fix, you know, when it's the Lord's word and his food, his spiritual, you know, manna, his word, that's going to give you that fullness, you know? But it says, verse 6, it says, there is none more evil than he that envieth himself, and this is a recompense for his wickedness, right? And to get that word, envy, because that's a good word to get as far as understanding for real. It says, envy, the desire to have a quality, possession, or other desirable attribute belonging to someone else, right? It says a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck, right? And synonyms are having a grudge, right? It says discontent, resentment, jealousy, covetousness, spite. There's a say green-eyed monster. I don't even know what that means, but it says jealousy personified. Yeah, that's interesting. But it says begrudged, right? Yeah. So, all these different traits, they're the wrong things to have in mind, right? But usually, the type of people that tend to have these traits are the people that are looking to be seen of men. They're not seeking to be seen of the Lord. They're not seeking to please the Lord. They're looking to be seen in a certain way, right? And that's what this world pushes, starting with the rulers. They push this mentality to where they're again doing things for all the wrong reasons. They're not looking to please the Creator who gives the increase to everything. You can water this, you can plant that, but if it's not what the Lord wants to increase, He's not going to increase it. Simply put. So continuing here, it says even if He doeth good, He doeth it in forgetfulness. This is verse 7, right? It says even if He doeth good, He doeth it in forgetfulness, and at the last He sheweth forth His wickedness, right? And that's in the RV 1895, right? And in the KJV verse 7 it says, and if He doeth good, He doeth it unwillingly, and at the last He will declare His wickedness. You see, so that unwillingly, right? That forgetfulness just shows there's no real consideration there, and again, for you to be coming back into your true heritage, your true state as far as amongst Israel, you gotta take on the traits of Yahweh Shai. Be like Yahweh Shai. Him on walking on earth was Him being that example for us to be able to follow, so that way we know what it is and how it is we are to be, what we are to be seeking, focusing on your intentions, really being considerate of what it is that you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're doing it for, all these different things, because in the ancient days we did sacrifices, but yet we never understood the true purpose of why we were doing the sacrifices that we were doing. When you go to make a sin offering, right? You killing the lamb or the goat, right? It's supposed to be resembling you, representing you. In our people's mind, they weren't looking at it how they were supposed to where it was basically on some, well, if I sin, I just make the offering and I'm good, and then go right back into sin. Never really considering their intentions, never seeking what was important, which is your spirit, your mind, what it is that you're feeding your spirit and your mind, These are all very important things, because whatever your treasure is, there will your heart be also, you know. And we're going to get that scripture too. But that's something really important to pay attention to, because treasures aren't just physical things. Treasures are things that you hold to, or have like in regard, you know. Things that you condone, right? Things that you like, the way that you act, the way that you respond to things, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are things that are stuck in place that are a part of how you operate, you know? And those are going to be the things that are regarded, the things that you hold to, you know? So if those things aren't right, because you want to make sure that you looking at this from a spiritual standpoint first, then physical, you know? That was like completely part of Yahweh's whole way of operations, you know, spiritual then physical, intent before the action, you know. You got to understand the purpose before you execute the purpose, you know. This world doesn't push that. Just go off the flesh. Just do as thou wilt. Just do what you want, you know. And look how crazy the black community look, you know what I'm saying, how black culture look, you know. Everybody just doing whatever, everybody just saying whatever. Now, you know, like, everybody just got something to say that don't matter for shit, you know. And they doing it to be perceived one way when they a whole other way, you know. Everybody faking the funk. Nobody's real. Nobody's really dealing with the things that they need to be dealing with, you know, tending to the things that they really need to be tending to, you know. Nobody's considering the things that they really need to be considering. Nobody's taking accountability, you know what I'm saying. You see a lot within our women, right? With them not taking accountability, now they not producing the right fruit. They not acting the right way, you know. They constantly keep getting involved in all these things that don't bring them anywhere closer to the Lord, because you're not taking hold or taking heed to how he moved, you know. So now you just in the mix in all the wrong places, in all the wrong ways, you know. But let me get this. Okay, that's that chapter. This is Matthew 18 and verse 1. It says, "At the same time came the disciples unto Yahushua, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Yahushua called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. It says, Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child, the same is greatest in the kingdom of heaven." Right? And this one of the verses that I came into the truth learning, you know. This was something that was this like my beginning roots, if you will, right? As far as how I was taught, you know. And what's so heavy about this, but with it being heavy is all still so simple, you know, is you can't expect to try to bring in old bullshit with the Lord, you know. You have to start fresh, right? A child is like a sponge, you know. And with the sponge, it soaks up, you know what I'm saying? It absorbs things, right? So you got to wring, you know what I'm saying, your sponge out, basically. Because what you've been absorbing and what you've been soaking up is within this world is things that don't please the Lord, you know? Ways, traits, action, thoughts, mentalities, things that you hold to in regard, right? It's all it's all soiled, you know. It's like you were soaking up piss, basically, you know. So now you gotta wring it out, clean it, you know what I'm saying? Get it back to square, you know what I'm saying, square zero, you know, phase one, if you will, right? To soak up something good, you know, holy water, if you will, right? So that way, what it is that you do soak up, you know, is it's like the sponge is your spirit, you know, and like you the dish, basically. You know what I'm saying? If you got piss water, you're not gonna be able to clean those, you know what I'm saying? You're not gonna be able to clean the dish for real, right? But if you got clean water, soapy water that it absorbs, you're gonna be able to purify the dish, you know, make it clean. And that's what we are to do. You can't try to mix the two, you know. It's like when you mopping, you know. When you mopping, right? You gonna have to get rid of that water that's in the bucket. Initially, it's clean, you know what I'm saying. But once you keep dunking it back in after every time that you get some dirt on it, you know what I'm saying, the water's dirty. So you need that clean water, or like they got like the buckets now, like where you got like the clean water in the reservoir that's, you know what I'm saying, like set apart from the dirty water. You know what I'm saying? So that way you constantly just, every time that you use it up, you know what I'm saying, you basically resetting and cleaning it, the mop head, to put it back in the clean water to use it to clean again. You know what I'm saying? And that's just for that example, you know. Simply, you want to absorb only the good things and none of the bad things. That's why the Lord said, I pray not to take them out of the world, but to keep them from the evil that's within the world. You know, you want to refrain from the evil that's within the world and hold to what is good, you know, good for you specifically. But in order for you to do that, right, you got to know how to measure yourself, you know. You got to know what's right and what's wrong for you, you know. Prove thy soul and see what's evil for it, and give not that unto it, you know. Not every one thing that's good for one brother is good for another brother, you know. But you got to know what's good for you according to his word, so that way you know what to obtain and what not to obtain, you know. You can't be expected to be trying to do this or do that if you not right. You know what I'm saying? You can't expect to be here in this position when you don't have nothing keeping you, you know what I'm saying, taking care of, making sure that you good, you know? You got to make sure that you are straight yourself first before you try to help somebody else. You know, that's the whole beam in the moat. What's the word? Parable. You know? You can't expect to help somebody else if you still got some shit that you got to get out, you know? So that's something to be mindful of, because Jake in the world just be talking, just be saying shit. But ain't got nothing set up how they need to be set up for themselves, you know? And that's where a lot of men give, you know, this a bad rep. You know, they give the Lord, they give Israel, you know, a bad rep. Because you got all these people trying to act and do all these things just to be seen when they not right themselves, you know? And you can't hide nothing from the Lord. You know, all things are made to be made manifest. You know what I'm saying? All things that are hidden will always be made manifest, roughly paraphrasing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing that you can hide that ain't gonna come to light. You know? That's why you want to judge yourself, so that way the Lord don't judge you, you know? Because when he judge you, it's a whole nother level. You know? It's like your earthly father when he judge you, like as far as like, you know, disciplining you, right? He hit you with the belt, you know. It's like an earthly punishment, you know. But the Lord, being our Father in the Spirit, like the power that He got, you know, is on a whole other level as far as how He can get you, you know. It's gonna be spiritual, and physical. You know what I'm saying? Like He know how to take, or he know how to take and kill the body and soul, you know, and not just the body. That's why we are to fear Him, you know, fear Him in a way that you want to please Him, you know. So let me get this real quick. So bear with me. This might look crazy. It's like it's wise. This is Romans 12 and verse 1. It says, "I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service." And it's the point. It says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. You see? So, the way that you should be trying to renew your mind is getting rid of, let me see if I can get that. And this is a good one. This is 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 17. It says, "Therefore, if any man be in Hamashiach, he is a new creature." Right? It says, "Old things are passed away. Behold, all things will become new." Right? So, with you being in Yahweh, right? With you renewing your mind, right? And you trying to find that, as it says, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God, right? But you doing that, you putting off the old man, you know? You becoming a new creature, a whole new person, you know? Like you being reborn. That's why you are to be like babes, you know, that little child, right? The old things are passed away, you know? So we are to be looking to be better in that regard, right? This is Ephesians 4:22. It says that ye put off concerning the former conversation that ye put off concerning the former conversation, the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lust, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that ye put on the new man, which after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. Right? If you're doing what everybody else is doing, it was normal to be seen out here, right? You're profane, because that's what profane goes into, being common, right? To be holy is to be set apart, right? To be anointed, right? To be pure, you know? To be clean, right? You want to be trying to trying to make sure that you are taking on those traits of the Lord for real, you know? Getting rid of all the things that's of the old man, you know? Let me see. What am I doing here next? Yeah, that's a good one to get. There it is. So there's only one way of doing this, you know, and it's taking on those traits of the Lord, you know. That's why he says he is the way, the truth, and the life, you know. No man can come to the Father but by me. So, with that said, you know, there's only one way that you can get to that, right? That's why he say here in John, the 10th chapter, starting at the first verse, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. Right? It says, but he that entereth in by the door of the shepherd, but he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name and leadeth them out. Right? And it says, and when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. So like, continuing here, because I'm going to get to the point, right? It says, this parable spake Yahushua unto them, but they understood not what things they were which he spake unto them. Then said Yahushua unto them again, verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out, and find pasture. The thief cometh not, but to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. You see, it says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. Right? And these and those are certain traits that he's mentioning, but those are traits that show consideration. You know? Like the things that are of the Lord and that are of the Lord's Spirit is gonna show on every side the sense that's being made there. If it's not of his spirit, you're gonna see slots and holes, right? Because it wasn't fully thought out or it wasn't fully considered, you know? Back in the Sirach 14, you know? The traits of a niggard shows there's no real consideration there. You know? It shows that the things that are needed to be considered aren't being considered, you know? And that's a schism, that's a separation, that's the leavening, you know what I'm saying? That's there. It's gonna be noticed, it's gonna be seen, it's gonna be sifted out. It ain't gonna be able to be hidden, you know? But continuing here, because that's not the point. It says, verse 12, but he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep and fleeth. And the wolf catcheth them and scattereth the sheep. It says, the hireling fleeth because he is a hireling and careth not for the sheep. I am the good shepherd and know my sheep. I am known of mine. You see? And what does that word hireling go into? Let's get that. So hireling says a person who works purely for material reward, right? Something physical, something carnal, you know? And let's see what that word goes into real quick, if it shows anything. It says a wage worker, right? So simply just somebody that's looking to collect a check, you know. And it's funny because that's really how Jake be out here working, you know. They just there for the check. It's not something that they really put their spirit in, but it's because we know in our spirits it's not right, you know. So why would you try to bring that same mentality in with the Lord's business, where it's through Him that we receive and gain things to our detriment and our benefit? You know, your detriment if you don't get it, and your benefit if you do. You know, that's like what's so important about taking this serious, right? And really meditating on what it is that you need to fix and correct within yourself, so that way you can actually do what's right and receive the benefits of doing what's right. Interesting. So let's get that word on the flip side, that word shepherd, right? It says, shepherd, a person who tends and rears sheep, a member of the clergy who provides spiritual care and guidance for a congregation. It says, tend sheep as a shepherd, give guidance to someone, especially on spiritual matters, carefully manage resources or an organization, guide or direct in a particular direction. You see? And that's beautiful. Get that on the screen so y'all can see that. In order for you to be a shepherd, you gotta really consider what it is that you're doing. Really consider what it is that you saying. Really consider what it is that you are bringing into yourself. You know, you got so many frauds in this truth amongst Israel that don't consider these things because they still so caught up in trying to live this lavish life in the world, and you caught up in all these the fake shit that don't hold no weight in this world. Like, this world is going to end. The Lord is not saving this world. Plain and simple. He that loveth this world, you know what I'm saying, God is not with him, right? That's, what is that? I want to say that's 1 John, the 2nd chapter, the 15th verse. You know what I'm saying? You can correct me if I'm wrong. It's a lot. Really, I'll just check, you know? Yeah. I'm going to just read it real quick. 1 John 2:15, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world, verse 17, and the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. How do you do the will of the Lord? Right? You gotta make sure that you have his word in you. You like a bottle, right? You can't try to put, you know what I'm saying, like his spirit, you know what I'm saying, his wine in your bottle if you already filled to the brim with, you know what I'm saying, all this fuck ass wine, you know? Some pork shellfish fermented ass wine. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not gonna mix. You know? You gotta get rid of everything that's was in the bottle first before trying to be filled with, you know what I'm saying, with his wine, with his spirit. You know? And that process is gonna take you thoroughly considering what it is that you do wrong, what it is that's not right, what is right, what it is that you do that's right, you know, and things like that, right? If you're not really considerate and you just do shit just to do shit, you being tossed and pulled to and fro, you know. You're being ignorant. You're not having prudence. You're not being circumspect. You're not being discreet. You're not, you know what I'm saying? You're not upholding any of the traits of the Lord, you know? So when you go on to do things, you're going to come off like a nigger, you know? A nigga, you know? You're going to come off as a stingy person because you're not really being considerate. You just doing shit just to do shit, you know? That don't make no sense. Those aren't traits of men of the Lord, you know? And if those are the traits that you hold to, you not going to get no benefits from the Lord neither, you know? Where I want to get next? Yeah, let me continue finishing that. Jumping back to Sirach 14, right? And I left off in verse 7. So verse 8, it says, the envious man hath a wicked eye. It says, he turneth away his face and despiseth men. Right? Where does that say in the RV 1895? It says, evil is he that envieth with his eye, turning away the face and despising the souls of men. It says, a covetous man's eyes, not satisfied with his portion. You see, you constantly seeking to fill a void, basically. You know what I'm saying? Because you have the wrong mentality. You're not being filled with his word, right? He gonna give you that fullness. You know? If you don't have his word in you, you constantly gonna be starving. You know? That's why Yahushua said what he said with the woman at the well. You know what I'm saying? The water I gave thee, right? I'm gonna just grab it real quick. Where's that? John. Yeah, John 4:14, it says, but whosoever drinketh the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. You see? Yeah, so just leaving it there. The water that he gonna give is gonna have you full. It's gonna have you good. You gonna be satisfied. You know? He gives that fullness. He gives that increase. Right? You ain't got to do a whole lot besides just making sure that you good. First and foremost, before trying to, you know what I'm saying, help somebody else. Right? You refrain from doing all the extra shit until you straight. Because if not, you just gonna be doing shit just to be doing shit and not really understanding why you're doing it. Which is exactly the same issue that our people in the ancient days had. Doing shit just to be doing it and not really understanding why. The intentions, the purpose, the reasoning all behind these things. You just give a sacrifice just to get the sacrifice. Just to say that you good. You know? That's what the fuck the Pharisees did. They're not paying attention to where their mind is at when they keep doing this shit. You know? And really that made me think of this one right here. This is Luke 18 and verse 9. It says, and he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. It says, 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. It says, the Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. It says, I fast twice in a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. You see? And all of this is him doing all these things, these carnal things, right? Thinking that he good, but he not paying attention to where his intentions are. He's not paying attention to where his spirit's at when he does these things. The same issue that our people had back in the ancient days when they were making sacrifices. Oh yeah, I just gotta kill a lamb so that way I'm good in the flesh. And that's it. We gonna rock, you know what I'm saying, and go right back into doing the same shit over and over and over again. Never learning, never abounding, never really meditating on what it is that they're doing, you know? But continuing, it says, because all the things he's doing, it look good, you know what I'm saying? But yet, there's still something missing. What is it that's missing? Right? It says, and the publican standing afar off would not lift so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. So it's not about the physical shit, for real. You know what I'm saying? First and foremost, it's about getting your mind and your spirit on point first. Understanding your purpose, understanding your lot, understanding what it is that the Lord needs from you, right? He needs you to make sure that you good first before you can try to help somebody else, before you can do anything else. You know? You don't want to just get caught up in the motion of just doing shit and not ever understanding what and why it is that you're doing it. You know? You want to make sure that you are being considerate of yourself the right way so that way you know how to be considerate of others. Because the Lord say what? Right? Where do I want to get next? That's it. Yep. The Lord say what? This is Mark 12, and I'm going going to start at this is Mark 12:28. It says, and one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all? And Yahushua answered him, the first of all commandments is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. Mind you, all these things to do come with consideration, right? To love somebody with all your heart, right? All your soul, all your mind, with all your strength, right? For you to be able to do those things, you have to consider how to do those things. You know, it says, so it takes a certain level of consideration to be able to accumulate a plan, to finalize a plan or a solution that you can execute, that you could do, right? It says, this is the first commandment, and the second is like, namely this: thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. You see? And it says, and the scribe said unto him, well, master, thou hast said the truth, for there is one God, and there is none other but he. And to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the soul, and with all the strength, and to love his neighbor as himself is more than a whole burnt offering, is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. And when Yahushua saw that he answered discreetly, he said unto him, thou art not far from the kingdom of God. And no man after this durst ask him any question. You see? So, basically, you basically with this, right, you gotta learn how to be considerate in a specific way, right? You gotta learn how to love in a specific way. You gotta learn how to give your love in a specific way. You gotta learn how to give your strength in a specific way. You gotta learn how to use your mind and do all these things, you know what I'm saying, in the correct way, right? That specific way is got to be the correct way, not just any really, you know what I'm saying, kind of way of doing things. It's got to be the right way. If it's not the right way, it's the wrong way, you know? If you're not going through the Lord, Yahweh Shai, you're not getting it right. Plain and simple as that, you know? Yeah, kind of. Like, I made notes, but basically, you learn how to love correctly, right? Then you learn how to give your love correctly, you know? Because you have to learn how to love yourself right. That's our people's main issue. They don't love themselves. They hate themselves. That's why they keep on trying to take on and take on all these different personas and all these different identities that have nothing to do with who they really are, right? With you not knowing who you really are, you don't know where the hell you're supposed to be going. You know? If you have no clue where the hell you're supposed to be going, you just be in charge, you pull to and fro. Now you considering things that you ain't got no business considering. You know? Now you being diligent in all the wrong ways. You know? You ultimately just hurting yourself. So, with you doing that and you going about that the right way, right? Then you can give your love the right way. You know what I'm saying? You learn how to give your love and then give it the right way, right? And with you doing that, that's what's esteemed higher than sacrifices and offerings, you know, burnt offerings, right? So those are all things to really consider and pay attention to, you know. Yeah, I'm gonna continue on this back in this Sirach because there's still more here, right? So it says, let me see. Right, so I left off in verse 9. This is Sirach 14:9. It says, a covetous man's eyes is not satisfied with his portion, and the iniquity of the wicked drieth up his soul. It says, the wicked eye envieth his bread, and he is a niggard at his table. My son, according to thy ability, do good to thyself, and give the Lord his due offering. Right? And that's speaking spiritually first, then physically. Because if you don't got it spiritually, you're not going to be able to do it correctly in the physical. What the hell you think happened with Cain and Abel? You know? Abel was actually paying attention to what the purpose of it was, which is why his offering pleased the Lord. Fucking Cain thought it made sense to give the Lord some scrap apples and some shit. You know? Like, nothing that held substance, you know, something that he obviously didn't take the time and energy to really understand and really perceive, you know. Like, think about it, the things that people hold most value to them are the things that they put their time and energy into. You know what I'm saying? So why not put your time and energy into things that's actually going to bring you benefits, the things that are actually going to help you, which is things of the Lord, traits of the Lord, you know. Like, it's just crazy. But because of the captivity that we've been in and the people that are ruling, which are people that are not righteous, they're not the Lord's chosen people, right? You've got all these different examples of what not to do. And yet people are trying to bring that shit in and mix it with something that's holy. You're not gonna be able to do that. You trying to follow the Lord, and that's not gonna work. You know, it's just not gonna benefit you or anybody else, even if you think that. But if you think that, you ignorantly thinking that. You know, you stupid for thinking that. Really, you're not using the Lord's wisdom. But that shows that you don't got it. You know. What was I just reading? So it says, Sirach 14:9 in the RV 1895. It says, a covetous man's eyes is not satisfied with his portion, and wicked injustice drieth up his soul. It says, an evil eye is grudging of bread, and his misery is at his table. It says, my son, according as thou hast, do well unto thyself, and bring offerings unto the Lord worthily. You see? So it's got to be something that's worth actually giving to the Lord, right? Now I'm gonna jump down to verse 20. It says, blessed is the man that doth meditate good things and wisdom, and that reasoneth of holy things by his understanding. It says, he that considereth her ways in his heart shall also have understanding in her secrets. You see? It says, and I'm gonna read those verses in the RV as well. It says, verse 20, blessed is the man that shall meditate in wisdom, and that shall discourse by his understanding. It says, he that considereth her ways in his heart shall also have knowledge in her secrets. Right? Let me see. Yeah, so I'll leave it there just to keep it concise. But basically what's being shown here, you know what I'm saying? These are the certain actions that you want to be taking, right? This is a part of how you go on to renew your mind. This is how you go on to take on those traits of the Lord. This is how you build up, right? It says, blessed is the man that shall meditate in wisdom. To meditate is to consider things, you know. To righteously meditate is to consider the righteous things and hold to those things, you know. Treasures aren't just earthly riches. Treasures are also things that you hold to, right? Because something that's a treasure to you, you can hold dear to you, you know. So you want to hold dear to the traits, the characteristics, and the things that the Lord does, that Yahweh went on to profess and to show when he walked the earth, you know. I always say this, like, we are to be living examples on earth just as the Lord was, you know, pushing forth the same doctrine and the same sentiment that he pushed when he walked, you know. That's so important, right? And with us doing that the right way, it's only just going to glorify the Lord, you know. That's Matthew 5:16, you know. I'm going to get another scripture real quick. This is Ecclesiastes 7:1. It says, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth, right? And that good name is like your rep, you know? Like, you want to make sure that you giving yourself a good rep, because it's not how you start the race, it's how you finish it, you know? You may start terribly, tripping up, and you know what I'm saying, whatever, what have you, you know. It's like you doing I forget what they call it in track. When you heading off the baton, you might accidentally drop the baton, handing it to the next runner, right? But you pick it up and you know what I'm saying, haul ass to where you know what I'm saying, constantly going to where then you put yourself back in the lead and you win, you know? It's all about how you finish. It's all about how you finish, you know? Because you had, of our people during the time that Yahweh was walking the earth, where people's beginnings weren't set up the right way, you know? But the Lord didn't write them off. You know, those that knew who they were versus those that didn't know. The circumcised versus the uncircumcised. You know what I'm saying? The Hellenized Jews versus the Jews that knew who they were. You know? But yet, what does the Bible say in Sirach 19? Sirach 19 and verse 24, it says, he that has small understanding and fear of God is better than one that has much wisdom and transgresseth the law of the Most High. Right? And we understand what it just said in it's like, we know what it just said in Mark 12. You know, those two commandments. Right? Loving the Lord with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your strength, right? And to love your neighbor as yourself. You know? Really being considerate of somebody else, you know, in the way that you are considerate of yourself, right? But you got to make sure that you consider yourself first correctly, so that way you can do it for somebody else correctly. If you treat yourself like shit, you can't expect to treat somebody else good, you know? Like, that's why so many relationships don't work nowadays, because everybody ain't shit. So you got ain't shit people only making more people not shit. Because you ain't get yourself right. You didn't get yourself right. And for those that are amongst Israel that know these things and are choosing to do the opposite, the Lord gonna get you. You gonna get messed up completely. Completely. Because you knew and chose to do the opposite. So you gonna get many more stripes than a few. And that's speaking to myself first and foremost before anybody else. Because again, it starts with you. Before you try to, you know what I'm saying, go to do anything else with anybody else. You know? That's why you gotta be so on point here. Because again, if you're trying to be a leader and a good leader, you gotta be worth following. You know? You gotta have the traits and the characteristics that's worth following. If you don't got those, you can't expect nobody to want to follow you. But the only way that you're gonna be able to really have those things and have the traits that are gonna withstand and that are gonna be everlasting is if you get it from the Lord. Plain and simple. So all that nigga shit, leave that shit at the fucking door. Cause the Lord is the door. He not gonna let you come in if you come in incorrectly. You know? You gotta leave that shit at the door. The angel's not even letting you come into the wedding if you don't got the right attire on, right? And that attire starts here. How do you clothe your mind? You know, you're a temple that the Lord's supposed to dwell in. What does your crib look like? What does your temple look like? Honestly, and that's some real shit to really consider. You know, and that's pretty much it. You know, it was a little long-winded, but it's a very important message to really pay attention to. We not supposed to be niggas. You not supposed to try to be a nigga with the Lord. The Lord not fucking with niggas. He's fucking with Israel. You know, not fucking with, but he dealing with Israel. You know, he not messing with no niggards, no niggas, no niggers, none of that. He not dealing with that. He dealing with Israel, Yasha Allah. So that's what you need to be considering. That's what you need to pay attention to. That's what you need to be trying to get right with God. You know? So the last thing I'm gonna get to is this. This is Sirach 19 and verse 1, it says, a laboring man that is given to drunkenness shall not be rich. And he that contemneth small things shall fall little and little. Shall fall by little and little. You see? To be drunk is to be like fully submerged in something, you know, fully caught up in something, you know, like, don't get really slack. I'm gonna grab this too. I'm gonna grab these two, and this little one, this be it, you know, because I had this one as well and I ain't grabbed it yet. But don't get drunk, you know what I'm saying, into deep caught up in the mist, you know what I'm saying, so much, you know, where you unconscious of it, or your awareness is off, you know. You don't want to get caught up in these nigga-like traits, you know, that's so common around us, because that's profane, right? But what was I gonna get? This is it's a lot. Matthew 6 verse 1, it says, take heed that ye do not your alms before men to be seen of them. Otherwise ye have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. Therefore, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. It says, but when thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth, that thine alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. You see? It's all about your intentions again. It's all about your intentions, right? And I'll even get that too. Verse 19, it says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, right? The things that's of the earth, right? We not doing the common shit. The common shit is worldly shit. Worldly shit is the earthly shit, right? You don't want to lay up your treasures as far as what you hold to. You know that the Pharisee back in what was that? Back in Luke 18, right? His treasures and all the things that he mentioned in is all these carnal things. Like, I fast this, I give, I type this, I fast this, I do this, I give that. Like, if it's not gone about in the right way, right? If you not where you supposed to be at, first and foremost, and you trying to do some extra shit, you only putting yourself in a bad position, you know? Really consider what it is that you're doing and what you're trying to do and the reasons on why you're doing it. Are you doing it to be seen in men, or you know what I'm saying? Are you doing it to please the Lord for real? Like real shit, you know? Like that's something to really consider. Don't go out of your measure to be doing the fucking most, because that's what men constantly do. In Israel, outside of Israel. We not niggas. We Yasha Allah. Holy men. Men that really consider, men that are considerate, men that are thoughtful, men that are intuitive, that are very observant, that are circumspect, that are prudent, you know, tender-hearted, right? Men that know how to condescend when it makes sense to condescend. Men that know how to rise to the occasion when it's time to rise to the occasion. You know, these are things to really take heed to. Really take heed to. You know, don't let your treasures be the shit of the world, the shit that's being portrayed in the world. All these men that got it, that don't got it from the Lord, they not finna have that. They not taking that with them. So it don't even matter about none of that. You need to make sure that you good and your family good. You know, make sure that you good first, and then get your house in order. Because if you not good, you're not getting your house in order. But the only way that you gonna be good is if you go to the Lord. Plain and simple. But reading it says, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So what you hold to is what you gonna be considering. Make sure you hold to the right things to be considering the right things. Plain and simple. Leave all that nigga shit at the door before you try to come to the Lord. So, Lord, when this has been edifying, with that, I'm going to say, Call Allah, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Wahawa Kakwatash. Right? Till next time, Shalom.